Good morning. Enhancement of strategic significance is can be or not is can be called diplomacy. It's about realizing the pulse of what's going around because, as we have discussed in another column, status quo is the most prominent aberration that one can hold on to because that is actually the last thing that will happen because it's something that evolve, as we usually say in a philosophical sense. Everything evolves in the very same way. Strategic significance, it evolves. We will discuss that in another column. Because power, control, dominance, it's all about the use and abuse of it. If you have control over strategic assets, you can use it or abuse it. In the very same way, if you don't have the very same thing, you can either use it or abuse it to acquire that. That is where pragmatism sets in. That is where we must form our, that is from where our policies must evolve, or that is where we must erect our social economics. It's about realizing the potential that we possess. That is where we come directly to the topic. It's about the road sense or the lack of it in Kerala's economy. With Virinyam hailed as the most natural port in the world, this has not yet transformed into, or rather, this hasn't created any micro dividends in the Kerala society yet. Of course, you can consider it in the macro terms, but still, the kind of spillover effects or the multiplier effects that it has to produce, it is supposed to produce, is something that we have to analyze. And that is where, when something like Virinyam comes in, the container logistic arena of Kerala society, something that hardly exists, especially a densely populated small state like Kerala, how that has to evolve. For that has to evolve. When that evolves, there comes lots of opportunities. That is where the global political scenario is very, very important. As we have discussed, we are into that post-migration era. So we need jobs, we need job creation here. Systems and avenues that create and promote jobs. So this container terminal or this logistic arena is something that we have to analyze. And when that has to happen, transport has to be one of the most important issues or one of the most important aspects. That is where the road accidents in Kerala, how that paints, how that depicts Kerala in a very bad light. It's about the lack of road sense, it's about the lack of civic sense, it's also about the lack of accountability. That is where we start our issue. Because we are, as we told before, into that strategic war for resources, something that always everywhere happens. But now, especially in this multipolar world with the global south setting in, you are going to realize that things are not as rosy as you expected. That is where we start our debate. This is something that we have to understand and we have to analyze, because the tanking significance of what you say soft economics, because soft economics is all about social economics. It's about realizing what the society needs, especially a society like Kerala, especially a geography like Kerala. The higher democratic credential in the society has helped it from falling prey to this big industry temptation, something that doesn't suit us. But that hasn't culminated in creating an atmosphere that suits a job creating system that goes along with the geography and society. Something we usually discuss how political empowerment, the right to organize, has transformed into militancy in student politics, how there's trade union politics. In the very same way, we are we must realize that social economics is also about the economics of accountability, economics of cooperation. It's all also about green economics. We are into this post immigration era. That's something we have to analyze. So we have to accept that more people will come in and more people cannot go as it used to be. So, being unable to fend off the ruckus propagated by immigration, hardly there is any terrain hardly that right wing has since set foot in across a diverse social, racial spectrum. So, as we have discussed before, the need to tame our senses, our resources, or the lack of the same, to come to terms with the reality that this is post-migration era and we have a Averinum with us. That is where social economics, accountability economics, green economics comes in. With a person like Musk set to design and define ambitions of democracies, the so-called democracies, you could sense, or you have to expect tremors. So we cannot go on like this. When as we told before, something hailed as one of the most natural, a port, water, we are going to discuss that. So when that comes in, unaccountable, or rather abandoned road economics, road social sense is not conducive to any kind of social progress. The myopic blueprint with a prolonged strain on economics and relinquishing social economics is to abhor accountability economics and green economics. That is where we come to realize the significance of dams and water bodies and how precious they are. That is why when we talk about containers, logistics, and the jobs that it can create, and the green economy that it can create, and when you see pathetic road accidents, they frequently hit the headlines, you see how socially insensitive, socially, how a society is deprived of social consciousness is something that we have to understand. We have to bite that bitter pie. The post-truth backtracking from China and the traditional policy of destabilization, the traditional venture of destabilization that America employ, which they recently played in the Bangladesh, they both demand our attention because they both related to water resources. It was about the rights over a port sea route in the case of Bangladesh, how Sheikh Hasina was became an antagonist in the White House. And the very same way, the new dam that is being visualized in China. So the significance of water, that is where the best port is with us, with Colombo, also creating security issues, including the invasion of China, the Islamic extremism. You see how Kerala can evolve a culture that has big scope related to that has traditionally evolved through water bodies, economically and culturally. So you see how neglected we are, how we neglect possibilities, how we are unaware of possibilities. So this is seeping into the status quo because this is supposed to change. There are no permanent enemies, there are no permanent friends. So this backtracking, this kind of backpedaling, this will happen unless we realize the significance of the assets that we must have. Because, as we told before, strategic autonomy is unpredictable and permanency is an aberration. And punitive policies, this will be the norm. It might be in the case of trade wars, it might be in the case of visas, import subsidies, sanctions. This will happen, especially in with countries that have vast political clout and disproportionate resources, like America. So we must understand that road is all about the sense you have. Good roads promote only good roads can promote public transport. When you promote public transport, you must have good roads. And in that public transport, you need to have vehicles that induce people to access it. And when public transport is used, and for that public transport we use clean energy, how the multiplier effect sets in. It taxes less on both the economy and ecology. And this clean energy, that is where the irony sets in, because the rare earths, the kind of minerals that is important for clean energy, is something that we import a lot, despite being blessed with it. So that's the irony. For by extracting these minerals, you create jobs just for that extraction and the conversion of it into clean energy. We don't do that, and we import. So these are all job opportunities that we kind of ignore, either purposefully or due to lack of vision. That's the irony that we are talking about. That is where good roads are important. That is where Kerala has to understand that water bodies, the new main street, that spur the surge to autonomy. Because an apparent half-hearted bid to foil the resurgent nature is sputtering the wallet. How that taxing the health system, at taxing the economy, the amount that people have to spend for health. All this comes in, and the kind of money that big economies are supposed to pay for to tackle climate change. So that is where good roads, public transport. This is something we have discussed before. The introduction of a new driving license that matches the international standard. How that doesn't get the kind of support that it is supposed to. So all that indicates a lack of sense. Because in the case of roads, it's all about encroachment. It's all about how it's about the land, procurement of land. There's a kind of hostile atmosphere that's prevailing. Acquisition of land, even in the case of, even if it is with the, except in the case of National Highway Authority, it's a very, it's a very murky terrain. Something that you don't have want to, a place where you don't want to go. This has always created a hostile environment in the it creates a very disturbing scenario. Every time when the issue of land acquisition comes in, you relate these with the encroachments and all these things. The badly designed roads that lacks accountability. Who is accountable? Who has to, when a road turns into a deathbed, who is answerable? What is happening there? That is where the issue starts. Poorly designed roads. And between that, in between these issues related to road or these accountability, you see the encroachments. You see the land acquisitions or the lack of it. There must be a policy design where people are willing to leave their space, leave their place, leave their land to government for expansion of roads. But why that is not happening? It is because of the lack of trust. It is because of the lack of accountability. The kind of terms coming in, panchayat roads, municipality roads, government roads, all these creates a kind of, it's actually a vague idea. This is circulating around as a very disturbing, annoying thing where nobody actually knows what is happening, what is there. The technicalities involved in all these things is so disturbing that you don't want to go there. You don't want to be part of it. Either you don't buy a land or you don't give away a land. That is where land acquisition, especially in a democratic society like Kerala, becomes a big issue. Expansion of road is not happening. But how to expand these roads without it becoming an infringement in the green economic terrain? Land acquisition is always the biggest hindrance to Kerala's social progress. It is because of the lack of trust. Like you see in the kind of the repentance that the High Court has expressed in the case of demolition of an apartment in Kochi a few years back. It was hailed as one of the noblest initiative against laws that bypass nature. But that turned out to be a very very disturbing and very funny thing, because apartments, constructions that defy the norms of nature, the laws of the land, that comes up every now and then. But what happened was that An apartment was demolished to salute nature. But what happened to people who gave away their land for this noble demolition of anti nature elements? That is where this kind of land acquisition becomes an issue. People will be willing to give away their place. It could be a shop, it could be a house, but they must be hailed. They must be respected for the kind of service they do, and that respect has to be the consideration. It should be in the form of it should be in the form of consideration. You are not rehabilitating them. You are giving them a better space for helping the authorities to expand the society, because you expand the road to accommodate, because life has changed, nightlife has emerged. Of course, there are issues in the Manaviyam. People still unwilling to accept the life change that has evolved, but still, nightlife, nightlife is also it is also it also causes the kind of like light pollution. Still, nightlife is here to stay, and when nightlife happens, and when women take to streets, when women live their life at night, they enjoy their job, they frequent roads in the night. That means a social. That indicates social progress. An empowered woman, safe. They're not roaming around the streets. They are doing their job, and they get time to relax themselves. So when nightlife comes in, roads, and when upper middle class rise, when private vehicles rise, the roads will be congested. But the congested roads, or the roads that see more traffic, more vehicles, they are not expanded. They are not expanding. And now, with Viridium coming in, with containers the container traffic supposed to happen, supposed to be promoted. There are some very disturbing issues in the container transshipment in Viridium, with the kind of mini ports not up to the mark in enhancing the handling of logistics in the Viridium port. So when that kind of issues come in, the road sense has to evolve. The kind of roads we have, the kind of geography we have, we must know that this has to expand. And when you expand that, it has to be a social revolution, taking people into trust. And people must have the trust. Yes, I'm going to give away my land, and for that, I don't have to incur a loss. Of course, there is a kind of militant politicization too that is happening. So, a road sense has to evolve. When accidents come in, you realize that there is a lack of accountability. Who is accountable? Is it the municipality? Is it the state or central government? So when you see road accidents coming in a state with the busiest, supposed to be the busiest port in the world, that sounds very annoying. So you have to understand that lack of road sense is lack of social sense. Land acquisition, that has to evolve. You see issues related to encroachments. You see more than 5 or 6 shops in places where there's supposed to be 2. There must not be more than 3 or 4 shops. And in these 3 or 6 shops, you see issues related to electric circuit mismanagement. So when all these things happen, what kind of picture that it is creating? That is where the issue starts. Because that is where we must understand that we are not up to the mark. Road accidents, frequent road accidents in Asia in land acquisition. This is not a place for pan Indian initiatives. This is what you can infer. Because the global scenario, as you see, that is so unpredictable, as we told before. We must understand that the international scenario is not as rosy as we expected. That's where we must understand that road sense, green sense, social sense has to coexist, because a belligerent Trump is all set to return, and is having an action plan that includes regaining the ceded sea routes territories. We discussed that before, the Panamas and all these things. So you see that the Indian diaspora is also part of these immigrants now. The waning clout of Indian diaspora. So what that indicates is Trump is not someone who will hide his emotions. He is someone who will flaunt his intentions. He would flaunt his skin, and he is not someone who is content with having his art on his sleeves. So the blue economics, the water economics, the strategic economics are strategic power that we must understand. So we have a Viridium, and we have roads that still doesn't have an exit to, an entrance from this global evolved routes. We have seen this in the case of how we handle water, we handle dams. We have discussed that in the case of KSAB. The defunct hydro projects, the paralyzed water bodies. So what all this indicates is that we haven't realized the potential, the strategic significance that dams and water bodies and the blue economy have. So it's not the morass of global strategic interest that is belittling our structure. It is the perpetrated notion that actively and actually play the spoil sport, that we are safe, that this doesn't have to change. And that is where status quo comes in. The aberration called status quo. It's time to realize this aberration. It's time to understand that this is pure aberration. Roads that lead to ports, and ports that lead to destinations that we otherwise couldn't have accessed, is social green economics. So it's time to embrace, it's time to have roads that doesn't defy these social norms, social sense, road sense. It's time for them to set it. And it's time for the authorities, it's time for the government to take charge. It's still not late, but it would be too late if we are going to hold on to this aberration. Thank you.